what kind of problems with insurance policies, what kind of insurance company disputes are you seeing now? And do you predict that we will all see over the next few months as a result of the pandemic? Like what should people be looking at and being careful about right now?
Well, these are, the pandemic related cases are business interruption claims. These are, businesses that have been forced to shut down or, negatively affected because of stay-at-home orders or other kind of disruptive events. And a lot of these insurance policies provide coverage for that business interruption coverage. It just says, look, if there's some form of interruption in your business, we'll cover you for X period of time. And it wasn't until about 2006 with the SARS outbreak that insurers decided to start really excluding those types of events. So there are a lot of policies out there that have virus exclusions, and then there's some that don't. These are terribly important claims for businesses because we've never seen a level of shutdown in this country like we are now. And these are companies, businesses large and small, that are facing bankruptcy, going out of business permanently. So incredibly important cases that are going to turn on some legal issues. I think that for the most part, courts have not had to deal with before, although they're analogous situations. This is pretty unique, and so there's just going to be a wave of this litigation and people filing these cases, and courts and even lawmakers are going to have to figure it out, and it'll take years for it to get sorted out, and it will likely require some form of legislative backstop or action if the insurers are held to be partially or even fully responsible.
Yeah, so we actually, my law firm just got a denial letter for our business interruption policy yesterday. So you may have another client to add to the stable pretty soon. But I read something the other day, John, and I don't know if you saw this or whether you can confirm it or not, but I think I remember reading that the insurance company's national lobbying group has already weeks ago started lobbying Congress to pass special legislation to essentially say you don't have to pay any of these policies that you wrote. Have you read that, or do you have any knowledge of that?
I have. I've heard that that's happening, and that Senator McConnell's got a piece of legislation that he's looking at to broaden immunities, and I would imagine that would include for insurance companies as well. And on the flip side, of course, I've heard there's states like New York that are trying to pass legislation at the state level to require insurance companies to pay on these claims. And the reality is, as a litigator, I mean, my job is to look at the policy and to figure out what the law is at the time. And the reality, from my perspective, is making these laws retroactive, I don't think is very fair, and then eliminating their liability makes no sense to me whatsoever. If you bought and paid for coverage that covers this type of loss and it's not specifically excluded, then it should be covered. And so, but of course the insurance companies are terrified of that because it really could be just a catastrophic liability for them.
Well, and unlike many businesses, my view of this is the insurance companies have an army of people that evaluate exactly these kinds of massive risk. And if you decided to write an insurance policy for somebody and took their premiums, and then the risk happens, you should pay for it. I mean, this is the entire business of the insurance industry is predicting risk and collecting premiums to cover people that experience unlikely events. And so
that's exactly right. I mean, if the insurance company can predict the risk of nuclear war or terrorism and write exclusions about it, it seems odd to me that they can't also do the same with viruses. And in many cases, they didn't. Now, some they did, but I mean, you've got movies, right? Contagion, Outbreak, dating back years, where these events were predicted. So the idea that an insurance company whose job it is to, like you say, sit around and assess and predict risk didn't think that this was a possibility is just false, right? And so what they really want to do is avoid paying, which is also improper. And, really the biggest argument you hear coming from them is, well, if we have to pay, it's going to bankrupt us. But if they don't pay, right, there are a lot of businesses that are going to be bankrupt. If they bought the coverage, they should be entitled to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's actually an author named Nicholas Nassim Taleb who wrote a famous book called Black Swan, which was about totally unforeseen, unpredictable events. And he's come out because people are like, oh, this pandemic this is a black swan. And he's like, that's crazy. We've known about these problems for years. This is not a black swan. This is something people have been talking about for a long time. We knew it was inevitable. And the insurance companies ought to honor their promises.